Okay, well, hi everybody, and thank you for joining us today. It is hard to believe it's been 2 years since we last gathered together in person to share an update like this with you. While we were hoping to be able to get together in person this year, we're at least grateful for this opportunity to share some virtual space with you today. These last 2 years at Legal Aid have been pivotal, as they have been for all of us. I think decades from now, we'll look back at this time as an era of redefining who we are as an organization and how we serve our community. The global events that have shaped our world over the last few years have transformed us as individuals and as an organization. And COVID-19 has impacted virtually everything about our organization: how we reach our clients and deliver services, how we define collaboration among other organizations we partner with, even who our clients are, as we saw many families in need of services for the first time. And the wave of civil unrest sparked by prolonged and deep-seated racial inequity in our country has really challenged all of us to re-examine our own internal and external facing practices, even those of us whose very mission lies in the pursuit of equity and justice. And community legal aid has not been immune to these challenges, but rather than shrink back in uncertainty or stay frozen in place, we've faced these challenges head on. And I'm proud to say that we are a stronger force today because of it. Our team rose to the challenge of a 400% increase in need for unemployment assistance virtually overnight. Our advocates fought the silent pandemic within the pandemic, helping victims of domestic violence who were forced to shelter in place with abusers under the most dire and life-threatening circumstances. We innovated new ways of reaching people to ensure that the most vulnerable among us receive their stimulus checks and tax credits like the rest of us. We fought and continue to fight to protect the housing rights of those facing an eviction crisis that has plagued our community for decades and was only made worse by a global health crisis. And we did not do any of it alone. The last 2 years have really redefined what community means to us at Community Legal Aid. Funding partners and community foundations who proactively shifted to combat the emergency and prevent further disruption of people's lives. Volunteer attorneys who said, "Sign me up," when we asked them to pilot new technology for legal clinics to meet client needs. Partner agencies who joined together to share relevant and rapidly changing information to our common client base. And statewide task forces that banded together to advocate broadly for systemic change, not just here in our local communities, but also all across Ohio. And we're exceedingly grateful to all who rose above and beyond your written job descriptions, who stepped forward, even putting your own health and safety on the line sometimes to support our mission and our community. And thanks to your dedication, we've accomplished some really incredible things. So let's just take a look now at some of the highlights from this past year so far. Hey, and so the credit for this work really goes to the resilient and dedicated people that work with us every day. Our board, who swiftly responded to the crisis by aligning our advocacy priorities with emergent community needs. Our staff, who work tirelessly to meet immediate client needs holistically and with compassion, while simultaneously preparing to deal with the residual impact of the pandemic. Our donors and supporters, who have shown a renewed commitment to be champions of justice and amplify the voices of our neighbors in need. And I really can't say enough about how humbling it is to get to work with such incredible people. And so to our board and staff members, our supporters, and our pro bono attorneys, I just want to say it's really a privilege to be in this fight with you. And last, but certainly not least, I want to call special attention to our clients who have really met the added challenges of these past 2 years with courage and resilience, with vigor and passion and grace and hope. You know, it's every nonprofit secret dream that the challenges it's fighting cease to exist. But until that day comes, I say to all of our clients, we will continue to walk alongside you and fight for you. So really, thank you for entrusting us with this mission. So I am pleased to welcome with us today several really great people who've agreed to share their thoughts and perspectives on where we're headed in the coming year. We have James Palm, who's one of our clients, who has worked with us on challenging inequitable income tax policies in the state of Ohio. Welcome, James. Attorney Arun Kotha, who serves as a member of our board of trustees and has been a longtime pro bono attorney and works with Goodyear and has done some really great stuff helping us set up a clinic with the attorneys at Goodyear to help clients during the pandemic. Nan Gelhard, she's a volunteer and a passionate ambassador for Legal Aid's mission and social justice causes. Thanks for joining us, Nan. And James Brown, he's the president of the NAACP chapter in Youngstown and a community partner with Legal Aid. So thanks for taking the time to be with us today, James. So we have a few questions for you all, and we'll allow some time for a couple of questions from our audience as well. So if anyone watching has questions for our panel, please just share them in the chat box with our host and panelists. And so let's just jump right into this. And so the first we'll ask for James Palm as a client. So what do you think is the biggest challenge facing our civil justice system today? Oh, I think you're muted.
No, James, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry about that. So hi, everybody. James Palm. In response to the question, I think the biggest challenge is for clients to have adequate access. The problem I found was at the beginning process when I needed to take the steps to, for my personal case, was involved recovering W-2 tax documents. When it was for me to try to get access to my own personal tax record, I found that was very hard. And to be a citizen and not have direct access to my own personal data, it's like when we hear this all over the internet, data, your data breach, data this, data that, take responsibility for your data, that could become very hard if you don't even know where to begin.
Great, thanks. Arun, how about you? What do you think is the biggest challenge facing our civil justice system today?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I kind of have to echo a little bit of what James was saying. I mean, I think, you know, even with the before the pandemic, you know, equal access for people who can't afford an attorney, who in many cases are being wronged, right, through housing discrimination, through landlord-tenant issues, veterans who are absolutely entitled to benefits. And I think that's only, you know, become more pronounced now through the pandemic, and community legal aid, you know, helps to rectify that.
Great, thanks, Arun. Nan, how about from your perspective? What's the biggest challenge facing the civil justice system today?
I agree with everyone else, but I also think that, just like you said, Stephen, people need legal aid who have never needed it before and didn't think they would due to the pandemic. So at the same time, the pandemic's pulled the veil off racism, it's made people reconsider what personal worth is. Like, we have a tendency to use wealth as a proxy for value. Like, this wealthy person is smarter or better than this other person, but really it's the luck of the draw a lot of times. So we have a window of opportunity. I know we don't have the resources yet, but I would love to be able to contribute to the resources so that we can serve more people and make our town better.
Okay, thanks. And James Brown, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm in agreement with everyone else. I'm going to say with what we're doing hands-on is access. The NAACP is an advocacy group and advocacy organization, I should say, and we advocate for fair and just representation for all by standing up for our rights in the courts and in Congress. A lot of folks that call our office, and we work well with the Community Legal Aid office here in Youngstown, it's access. This last case, which I was, I think we're just concluding it because there were some agreements for December, but had they not had access, it would have been a much worse situation for these folks. And I think the opportunity for hopefully getting more grants out there to do more workshops, to expand the opportunity for more people to get in to have access to this is going to be so important in the next coming years.
Great, thanks, James. So just building off of that, when you think about these challenges and thinking into the future, and I'll start with you, Arun, who do you think is the most important people or entities that we need to engage in to really address these challenges over the next few years?
Sure. Well, so speaking from my side, I'm a lawyer. I think every lawyer should get involved. I think every legal professional should get involved. I mean, obviously, there are you have staff, attorneys at Community Legal Aid, but I think a lot of the work is done by people who are volunteering their time, and it's not really well known. At least I didn't know it until I started volunteering. It's been some time, but there are a lot of different ways to do it that don't involve, let's say you are just, your workload is off the charts. You simply can't take another matter of one-on-one representation from start to finish. I mean, that can be a commitment. I mean, I have found a great deal of satisfaction in what are called counsel and advice clinics, which are they're really interesting because, these are real people with real needs who need to spend 20 minutes with you to feel better about that, that the law, that someone can't just come the next day and kick them out of their house, or, that they have access to, to resources. There's specific clinics like the one we do here around criminal record sealing. And of course, there's also donations, which of course would be, always welcome. But there are just so many different ways, even if you have a niche practice, let's say, in finance, there's bankruptcy clinics. I mean, there's so many ways that don't involve even like general litigation that you can get involved with.
Great, thanks, Arun. Nan, let me ask you that same question. And so you're a non-lawyer, you're a layperson, as we like to say here at Legal Aid. But you just have a passion for these issues, and you have a perspective as a non-lawyer member of our community. Who do you think is the most important people for us to engage in to address these challenges?
I think we need to do outreach beyond the legal community. I think the community needs to have some basic education about systemic bad policy, and that policy affects me and everyone else, all your clients, all my community. And I'd like to see us do partnerships with other organizations and share expertise. And that's one of the things that I wanted to, the reason I came to Legal Aid was I'm happy to write a check, but I have resources that I can share and expertise I have access to that I can share too. Because Legal Aid is an attorney organization, but it has to get the word out too. So I think we really, really need to engage the entire community and make people understand that this will make us better. It'll make town, the state, the country better.
Great, thanks, Dan. And James Brown, who do you think, from your perspective, are the most important people we need to try to engage with in the next few years?
I think advocates like us, like the NAACP, we worked very well with, I'm going to keep mentioning it, in the past and currently with the Community Legal Aid here in Mahoning County. We were able to screen some of the clients because not all were affected in the same way by this housing discrimination case where I'm just talking about, but we're able to drive those clients who are in need directly to Community Legal Aid, and that way they can get the help that they need. And I think too, hopefully there's going to be opportunities for them to gain additional information with regards to maybe some clinics and things of that nature to help some of the folks who cannot afford a lawyer, but who may not fit your criteria, so that they can actually have access to some representation and assistance as well.
Right. Thanks, James. And James Palm, from your perspective as a client, who do you think we ought to be engaging with over the next few years?
So engagement, I think Community Legal does a really good job of working with the indigent, the poor, those people who are really in need due to poverty reasons. However, most of us don't know exactly about Community Legal Aid. So I would say actually getting directly out there to the people. Something we have here in Summit, Medina County is we have a 211 line, and we have street card resources for the homeless. And to be quite honest, that's how I found Community Legal Aid. I knew of a Community Legal Aid organization, but I thought they only dealt with criminal matters. I didn't think there would be any help for me outside of the Bar Association. And it wasn't until I actually got in touch with 211 that they put me in touch with an empowerment center who, reaches out with Community Legal Aid, who does a lot of work with Community Legal Aid. And they actually brought it to my attention that the other options I was thinking about, like legal remedies for my situation, that there is resources out there for me. Since that happened with me, I've been a huge endorser of Community Legal Aid and the United Ways 211, and I feel like just getting something as simple as that service out to the public would definitely be beneficial. A poor person wouldn't know where to go get help if they don't have the resources to know.
Yeah, that's a great point, James. And I think we've really tried very hard, especially during the pandemic, to get the word out about our services in the community. So it's great to hear that you were able to, through our partnership with United Way and the financial empowerment centers, to be able to find out about the service. And then obviously you're the lead plaintiff in a case against the state of Ohio right now. So we're very happy to have connected with you on that. So another question is, and I'll start with you, Nam, this time. In your opinion, what role should legal aid play in our community?
All right, from my perspective, there's two roles. One is individual advocacy, like directly helping clients. And the other is, because legal aid doesn't have to make a living, and because legal aid it doesn't have to make a profit, and because it has access to the experience of all its clients, it's in a position to do impact litigation, to lead policy, to really change the structure of things. And I really respect the attorneys that volunteer, but their firms aren't in that position. They don't have access to that information. They're not working with those people, and they can't work for free like that, where legal aid can be a thought leader on this and really change people's minds. And I keep coming back to, there is this window of opportunity because we're looking at things differently. And I know it goes across the spectrum of, some of it is horrible and ugly, and the other half is, wait a minute, we should all wake up and reconsider this. And when I talked to the legal aid staff, they all said they wanted to change the world. Okay, I think that's just very cool.
Well, that's true, Nan. We do want to change the world. So, I'll turn to James Brown. You know, from your perspective as the head of an advocacy group in our community, like how do you see the role of legal aid in our community?
Well, I see the role of legal aid as valuable and it's irreplaceable. I think there can be more. Of course, money's and I heard one of the panelists say donations. Donations are much needed, so that hopefully there can be some more clinics done. Hopefully there can be some virtual clinics. Hopefully there can be some resources that you folks can put out that could be accessible to people who are looking for basic answers to certain things. Mr. Palman made mention of access via 211 and street cards, things of those nature, those kinds, because it's important that everyone know that you exist, number one, and everyone thinks that they have a problem that can't be solved. And when they find out that you're here, and it's up to advocacy agencies like myself to let people know that you are here. And I think, and I would hope that we do a good enough job of screening, getting the right folks over to you, because we do here, in the past, before the pandemic, we had legal redress Saturdays. We would have an attorney come in and just talk about certain things, and if they fit and were eligible for your program, we would steer them to you. If they were not the fit, they would go to the other attorney. So hopefully we can continue our collaboration, and hopefully that there can be an expanded presence of what you do.
Great, thanks. And James Palm, from your perspective as a client, what role do you think legal aid should be playing in our community?
So I think the role legal aid plays right now is really a good role, just representing those who need representation. That's why we seek legal aid out, and that's what legal aid does for us. There are voices, they can get us into the system that, inherently we're either fearful of or just don't have the experience to be a part of. So I think legal aid does a really good job with that, because quite honestly, I've been satisfied with the work that the attorneys I've come in contact with and the paralegals I've come in contact with from legal aid. It's blown my mind, actually. It's a lot better than what I really thought it would be. I thought I would get pushed off. Nobody would really take me serious. Nobody would even care, just because of the situations and circumstances I come from. But I found that to be totally the opposite. It was a very warming experience, and it's just like breathtaking to know that when you're going against the system, that there is someone who's willing to march up to that line with you and fight back. And so I can't say that there's more of a role legal aid can be doing. The only thing I really would just point in on is getting the message out there to the public, as basic as it can be, as humble as it can be, because there's an intimidation factor of trying to go seek out legal help first off, and then to know that there is advocates out there who will be there for you. As Mr. Brown was saying, with the NAACP does a good job of screening cases. However, I would say legal aid should probably take more on a bigger role. If you guys have a volunteer base, and hell, I even volunteer my time to do it, just to sit on a hotline and screen calls, or to go walk up and down like the homeless tracts where the indigent actually reside, and pass out in literature or anything, like just getting real people out there, a real street team out. That I think that's probably the only other option I could suggest.
Great, thanks, James. So we do have a few questions in the chat box, which we'll turn to, and if people have more questions, feel free to put them in. So the first question is, can the panelists talk a little bit about community advocacy, i.e. legal services that do not involve individual case representation? What is CLAS doing? So I'll start with this a little bit. So I think, and some of you have mentioned the importance of sort of systemic advocacy work. And so while individual representation is sort of the heart and soul of what we do every day at Legal Aid, we take really seriously the need to think about the broader community and the taking our talents to try to change the system. And even like in addressing more systemic issues. So like in Summit County right now, we have our Neighborhood Law Project, which is really focused on helping groups of people who are interested in changing their community, giving them the legal resources they need to do it. So you might have seen in the Beacon Journal an article recently about us helping organize tenant unions for housing complexes where the conditions are just really awful, and we could go in and represent one person at a time, but instead of doing that, we're working with a community partner, an organizing collaborative, Freedom Block, to empower the tenants themselves to learn how to advocate for themselves, and so that we can then back off and move on to another complex, and those tenants will have all the information and power they need to fight for their own rights in the future. So that's just one example. I'm curious from the panelists whether you have thoughts about what kinds of sort of broader community advocacy Legal Aid ought to be doing, or things that you are aware that we are doing. And maybe I'll start with you, Nan. Put you on the spot.
You put me on the spot. I'm just really learning about this. I was talking to one of your staff attorneys, Marie Curry, on legal medical partnerships to make sure that children and families are supported. So there's a pretty good program for children, like Medicaid, but the family needs safe housing. The family needs security. And so doing those kind of partnerships and then being aware of the policy that directs that's just one of the things that I know about.
Yeah. James Brown, from your perspective as an NAACP, which obviously is looking at these sort of broader systemic issues, what role do you think Legal Aid ought to play, or what role have you seen Legal Aid play?
Well, the role I've seen them play, and I just want to see them continue and to expand, but is exactly what you described with the housing tenant union there. That's what happened here in Youngstown. And you were, one of your attorneys was doing a clinic. I was invited, but I had another meeting at the time. But then things went just sideways after the tenant union kind of got up and running, and the landlord, well, it just went sideways. And basically what happened was some of your other attorneys basically kind of got things corrected and redirected back into a positive direction, which is, like I said, is concluding, I believe, this month in December with the last of a couple of tenants. Now, when you do groups like that, there's attrition. Automatically, there's going to be attrition, and those who fall off, they fall off. But some of them don't want to get involved. But then there's still those, and I'm thinking of one elderly woman in this issue in particular, who you guys are Legal Aid, Community Legal is helping out very much, and she needed access to to be restored, and that's what's starting out right now. So I just want to see this continuing to expand to get those people that fall through the cracks.
Great. And Arun, from your perspective as a board member and somebody who has the responsibility to think about how Legal Aid devotes where its priorities are in balancing between sort of this community representation and individual representation, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, we talked about, James talked about some of the other work that you all are doing. I can't tell you how interesting it is that you currently have a case before the Ohio Supreme Court on something as, mundane as tax law, but you identified an issue that significantly, disproportionately affects low income individuals in our state, and you are fighting for that. So I mean, like that sort of advocacy. I know it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing that James was talking about. I'm sorry, both Jameses actually. But I mean, if you take that as a case study, I mean, you targeted an issue. It was not resolved to your satisfaction, and you're fighting for it. I mean, I think that it takes guts, it takes resources, and I mean, I think you're going to make a positive impact. I'm just tickled with that.
Right. Well, James, you're the lead plaintiff, so thank your contribution. Do you have what are your thoughts about sort of balancing between individual representation and community work?
So, to the last panel member who just spoke, that is my case actually, and there's not much I've ever talked about with that to people, because it was like I was homeless and I needed money. I needed access to some of my personal funds that I just realized, trying to pull all my resources together, that I thought taxes would be one of those resources, until I got to that process. And I always blame anything with math on me being dyscalculate, but it had nothing to do with dyscalculia. It had everything to do with a systematic approach. When dysfunction's in the system long enough, it becomes a function. And that's basically what I saw personally here. I went around and I asked my friends, like, hey, this is my situation with taxes. Have you ever had something like this happen to you? And they would say yes. I'm like, well, so how did you handle it? Oh, we just paid them, and no. Like, if I'm broke now, how am I just going to pay them and then get fined and saying, like, that was ridiculous. But what was even more ridiculous was nobody knew that they could challenge that to a judge or to somebody higher. They just felt like when the state of Ohio at that 800 number would tell them, do this, do this, do this, and this is it, that was it. One thing I would say I thought about was maybe starting at a younger age, getting a younger community involved with knowing their rights and how they can seek legal representation would better prepare them as adults. I know Judge Teodosio here in Summit County is very big on, when her clientele comes to the court, that they're informed of their rights, and they have to know their rights. But I really think people should know that before they get to court. The saddest part of this whole thing, and this is probably a racial perspective, was we all learned about the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, but in my class, like, we still have 3 more amendments to go to before those even affect us. And we're not really taught enough about that as we grow. So I think that would be my statement on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nan, were you going to say something, follow up on that?
I was going to say that our legal system is adversarial, and sometimes it hinges on technicalities, like James said, that mere mortals like me are not aware of. So we don't get very far. We need someone with that expertise to talk to us. And James Brown said maybe they just need an hour of explanation so they have a context to put it in, to say what you're entitled to, what you've earned, what you have a right to, and we'll get further that way too. We are thinking of working on the communication set, the info set that Legal Aid has, to make it available to everyone. So we recognize that as a resource we could put out to the community.
Okay, great. We have time for one more question, and let's see. So someone asked, I would like to know the panelist opinion on creating a diverse and inclusive community within our organization to not just be able to better understand issues our clients face from an advocacy perspective, but also a policy perspective as well. James Brown, you want to take a stab at that?
So the question is asking how to create a diverse population within your organization. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think in the work we do generally.
Oh, oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think once again, it goes back to access. And I think Ms. Nan had a perfect idea, just trying to get people enough information that they can, and like Mr. Palm said, you need to know your rights before you even get to court. You need to have enough information in order for you to have the access that you need, and no matter what it would be. And well, you said something about taxes, or it could be some other issue. But everyone needs some type of access, and to expand upon it in any type of way is going to be beneficial for the entire community.
Great, thanks. Arun, as a board member, what are your thoughts about how to create a more diverse and inclusive community?
Well, so we've kind of kept to our roles here. I'll talk about, the kind of legal community. I mean, the work that's needed to do that starts years before anybody even thinks about entering the paralegal field, the lawyer field, anything like that. I mean, you need to have access to housing so you can go to school. You need access to transportation so you can go to school, right? You need a safe school so you can do well in school, right? I mean, you have so many stepping stones, that are needed even to get so you have a population who can engage with the community, who needs the services, who can even fathom what they're, what the challenges that they're faced with. And that work, like it's almost like starting time. Well, you're already behind. I mean, and community legal aid's helping with a lot of that, but a lot of the background work and the work that's needed to start, it happens, over years.
Yeah, that's a good point. James Palm, what are your thoughts about how we can create a more diverse and inclusive community?
From your working perspective, I've never saw that as a problem. In my experience, I felt you guys were very diverse in your community, at least here in the Akron office. It seems very diverse. I've come in contact with paralegals and attorneys from different walks, and I'll just be honest, some of the experiences I've gone through in the past like 4 years has really opened my eyes to, our American society, our American life. And I've never felt more comfortable and represented as a person, as a citizen, than I have by the Community Legal Aid Society, especially here in Akron. And I'm a person who used to work for Judge Teodosio, I thought I knew my rights and I knew the court system, but it wasn't until I went through my own personal experiences that it was like, no, I don't know Jack, and I can really use, a diverse group of people to help me out. Community Legal Aid Society really has been that. And like, I have nothing negative to say except for I wish there was a way I could just like make sure everybody in Medina and Summit County knew, like, if you need help, call 211 or call Community Legal Aid's 800 number, and somebody will get with you and they'll at least explain you or help you with other options, because that's the major need, is just people need to know. People just need it out there.
Yeah, great. Nan, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'm an advocate for partnering with other orgs because I think we would get further. There was just a note in the chat about doing clinics at schools, and maybe it's high schools, maybe it's grade schools. I think that it would be welcome, actually. Just about personal growth. So I think that we need to take advantage of every expert group that we can, and that would give us a jump start on a different mix of people and perspectives.
Okay, thanks. And about the schools, I'll just add, so community, like, we're really fortunate to be able to partner with LeBron James Family Foundation and have a full-time attorney working at the I Promise School, a great attorney here at Legal Aid, and really both providing representation to the families who have legal issues, as well as really being a part of their family and becoming a role model for all those kids who are hoping for a bright future. And here in Summit County, the Akron Public Schools, they have their career and college academy, and they are now launching partnerships with nonprofits. And so Community Legal Aid is going to be partnering with the middle school here to work with the students on some of these issues about sort of teaching them about what legal aid is, what the legal community is, and issues like that. So we're really excited about and hoping that that'll be successful, and we can extend that elsewhere in our community. So I want to thank our panelists for joining us today. James Palm, thank you. Arun, Nan, and James Brown, thank you for all your time and your candid responses, and really for all you do to further legal aid's mission of justice for all. Before we wrap up, I do want to share a bit about what's on the horizon for us here at Community Legal Aid. Next year marks our 70th year of transforming lives in our community. And in preparation for this next era, we're really rethinking our organization from top to bottom. We're going to be unveiling new advocacy goals and a new structure that transparently outlines the greatest needs in our community and how we'll meet those needs. We're going to launch a new brand and logo that really reflects the organization we are today and the impact we'll strive to make in the years to come. And we're really excited to be hosting, alongside with our partners at Fair Housing Contact Service, host Pulitzer Prize winning author Matthew Desmond for a community-wide eviction prevention summit, really aimed at developing real solutions to housing insecurity in our community. And you'll learn more about that in the coming weeks. And we'll continue to do the hard work, both internally and externally, to identify and address the structural inequities that exist at the intersection of law, health, safety, and stability. And we'll continue to fight for laws and a legal system that really serve justice for all. So as we close our session today, we have one more video to share with you in recognizing the generous support of our sponsors for today's event. So let's play that video. Okay, and thank you to all the sponsors, and thank you, all of you, for taking the time to join us today, and for all you do to support and further our mission of transforming lives through legal advocacy. With that, we'll say goodbye, and hope to see you actually in person next year for our 70th anniversary celebration. So thank you so much for joining us, and have a great afternoon.